Hello, everybody. We'll get started here in just one more minute. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and for a select few of you, good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us today for the introduction of our official cyber research unit here within Critical Start. My name is Chris Oker, and without further ado, we will get underway. So the agenda for today's call is going to involve introductions of the cyber research team, as well as a block off for the cyber threat intelligence, the threat detection engineering team, the threat navigator, what is it, where can you find it, and then finally questions and answers at the end. So joining me today are myself, Chris Oker. I'm your customer success manager here at Critical Start. We also have Callie Gunther, who heads up our CTI team, Matthew Herring, who is the director of the crew, as we call it, and Jim Rode, who is the director of pre-sales engineering. So wanted to go ahead and take just a quick moment to let everybody know that you are muted on this call. However, you can interact with us by looking at the bottom center of your screen. You'll see a little chat box there that says Q&A. So as we go through today's meeting, you are more than welcome to write in your questions. We will see that on the panelist side, and we'll be able to answer those for you at the end of today's presentation. If we get to a point where we're in a time crunch, no worries. We'll make sure that we delegate out those questions accordingly and have those all sent out to everybody who has joined today's call or has at least signed up for it the week of the 13th. So without further ado, I'd like to again officially introduce Callie Gunther to the team and kick things off. Callie, you may be muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Thought I clicked it. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the intro, Chris. As Chris said, I'm the manager of the cyber and threat intelligence team here at Critical Start. And I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about our program and what we do here at Critical Start. Next slide, Chris. So the cyber threat intelligence is what information becomes once it's been collected, evaluated in the context of its source and reliability, and analyzed through rigorous structured techniques by those with substantive expertise. All of this is all source or closed source information. So that includes feeds, blogs, white papers, and information that's relevant in the development of threat intelligence. Wrapped up in this definition, you're going to see two salient themes that I'll return to. The first is that threat intelligence is focused on informing a decision maker and improving their decision-making process. And the other is that it focuses on the threat, not necessarily just the risk. Threat is one component of risk, and risk can be made up of several different variations of threats. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. What I really want to drive home here in the introduction is that we're all intelligence analysts in some sense, right? When you check the weather ahead of your outdoor plans and prepare accordingly, or you check a traffic route and adjust according to the traffic patterns, those are all examples of you being an intelligence analyst. Next slide, Chris. So one of the biggest barriers to ensuring threat intelligence is relevant is a bit of confusion between data, information, and intelligence. Threat intelligence has become very much more commoditized in the modern era, and the differences between data, information, and intelligence have become quite blurred. So let's first start by clarifying these differences. So data are recorded facts from a single snapshot at a point in time. With data, there's little or no subjectivity involved. Data is relatively binary. It's either true or false. It exists or it does not. For example, it was raining in Dallas at 10:27 last Wednesday. That's a data point. Information, on the other hand, is structured data that has been combined by the process of collection. For example, it rained and has rained every Wednesday for the last 20 weeks in Dallas. Intelligence, separate from those two, is about future events rather than data and information, which is purely historical in nature. The sole objective of intelligence is to assist the decision maker in making a better decision about the issue than a coin toss. For example, there's no reason other than coincidence that it rained in Dallas on every Wednesday for the last 20 weeks. But based on this historical data, there's a 70% chance that it will rain next Wednesday. So while data and information are useful, it's really the collation of those two things into intelligence and the applicability toward a specific scenario that makes it predictive. While many threat intelligence solutions will simply provide you with data feeds, data points, snapshots in a picture of time, the real value of threat intelligence is in organizing and managing all of your different sources of data. It's doing something with the data. Threat intelligence gives context. Raw data sketches out a map. Threat intelligence directs your route. Next slide, Chris. So few threat intelligence pieces kind of begin by discussing how you measure the effectiveness of the program. It's more commonly an afterthought, and by a handful of mature organizations, they do think about this up front. However, it's pretty critical that having a well-defined success criteria allows that there's a clear business case. In the longer term, it can enable you to demonstrate ROI, return on investment. We're not doing threat intelligence for fun, right? Well, I'm doing threat intelligence for fun, but ultimately we want to increase the bottom line. So to do that, threat intelligence must be both measurable and tailored to business goals. By focusing on how your threat intelligence is produced and how it's shared within your organization, how it's applied to each business case, you can use threat intelligence very effectively by making your already existing processes more efficient. Getting a higher ROI and making sure your security system is much more robust is the end goal. According to Gartner, who is a trusted source in the threat intelligence world, MDR providers are being asked by end users to provide adjacent security services to improve their security posture. It's not just about endpoint and SIEM management anymore. The mission of Critical Start CTI is to inform and educate internal and external customers on cyber-related threats and activities to drive technical and strategic decision-making. To fulfill this mission, we provide answers to questions our customers have around cybersecurity through the threat intelligence products we produce. CTI is intended to help security professionals who are embarking on creating these CTI capacities in their internal networks. We function as an extension of your security team. And in order to do this, all of our intelligence must be relevant, timely, consumable, and actionable. And without those four pillars, you really don't have anything that you can action on. Next slide, Chris. So a little bit of our consumers, right? Who is this for? Who's our target audience? Really, it's divided into three groupings: strategic intelligence, or high-level analysis information on trends that over time can be used to inform decision-making, especially relevant for C-level board stakeholders. And the broader trends are typically meant for non-technical audiences. For example, an organization's CFO decides to allocate a greater portion of next year's budget to the organization's cybersecurity team after reading a report focused on the growing ROI after a company in their vertical switched from using threat data feeds to a more complete intelligence solution. That's the kind of decision maker that CTI at a strategic level informs. The next level is operational. Here, we're gaining insights from ongoing and incoming attacks, including threat intelligence actors, campaigns, and all the details associated with that. This outlines the tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, of threat actors for a more technical audience. Here, we're talking to threat hunting teams, SOC analysts, vulnerability management, and incident response teams primarily. Analysts would be able, with operational intelligence, to spend more time triaging alerts and investigating after incorporating their threat intelligence solution into their already existing platforms. And finally, we have tactical. This intelligence on the tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, of threat actors really digs into the details about the specific attacks and campaigns. This is mostly geared towards SOC analysts, the SIM team, engineers, firewall and endpoint teams, etc. Here, the CTI team would analyze malware samples associated with a new campaign, adjust the feeds and behavior patterns and relevant attributes to engineer more detections, and develop new guidance for a whole range of security tools. Now, some people will include a fourth category, separating tactical from technical intelligence. In my opinion, technical intelligence is primarily focused on IOCs. And when you're really looking at a behavior pattern, you don't necessarily need to separate the IOCs into their own category. Next slide, Chris. So what do we actually do? What are our products? Here, we're disseminating. Our dissemination cadence is adjusted by our customers' needs, constraints, and feedback. We send out a whole suite of products, including security advisories, which are timely notices of emerging threats or other cybersecurity activities that we find relevant to your industry or organization, weekly intelligence summaries of relevant cybersecurity related activities or threats, leadership briefs, requests for information, where we provide information based on a request from the customer, full breakdowns of alert trends, groups of alerts, and presented as quarterly business reviews or operations reviews. We also do things like intelligence summaries, platform management, blogs and thought leadership. We do a lot of prospect engagement. So if a sales team has questions about a specific vertical that they're speaking to, we can answer a lot of questions there. Malware analysis and reporting, and threat detection research. Next slide, Chris. So where do we get all this information? We get information from a whole host of sources. Primarily, our platform, ZTAP, you can see with the Critical Start logo there, is kind of the hub for all of our collection. Andariel we use for dark web, and Threat Quotient is our threat intelligence platform. We use a lot of Multigo advisories from government boards like CISA and the FBI. Of course, all of the open source tools like Twitter, social media, any Intel OWL and OpenCTI also give us beaconing activity information. We monitor all of the forums, Conti News, Dark Matter, all of those guys. Triage is a malware platform, and we use quite a few Telegram type WhatsApp applications as well to monitor dark forum chatter. Next slide, Chris. Okay, so we've outlined that it's important to communicate effectively with stakeholders and that they've helped to shape the initial requirements of the intelligence program. However, it's also important to ensure that threat intelligence is actionable. After all, intelligence isn't really intelligence if you can't do anything about it. One of the biggest hurdles to good analysis is avoiding cognitive bias. There's a number of techniques that the intelligence analysts employ here at Critical Start to overcome cognitive bias, known as structural analytic techniques. Again, language of uncertainty, source evaluation, and analytic techniques are all priorities when we're doing our investigation. Next slide. So I've been talking for a while, but what's my point, right? There's been a massive increase in cyber attacks and ransomware. And it's made organizations more aware of the need to improve simple SOC workflows and arm their security analysts with more knowledge. However, the process of collecting, analyzing, and curating thousands of indicators and feeds and information each day can quickly diminish the expected benefits, or worse, expose the organization to new risks when impractical intelligence is created. It's really difficult for customers to keep up with the continuous stream of cyber threats on a day-to-day basis. And not all threats are relevant or trustworthy. Publicly known intelligence must be contextualized, deduplicated before it's turned into analysis, adding to the workload of an already stretched SOC team, if they have one at all. Open source threat intelligence requires training to produce actionable results for the internal stakeholders. And most organizations don't have the technology to monitor the clear and dark web for signs that their data has been compromised. And if they do hear about threats, most consumers often are unsure about what action to take, if any, to address the vulnerabilities in their environment. From a customer perspective, Critical Start CTI processes intelligence on behalf of our customers and only sends them what's actionable. Our team curates original threat intelligence so you can prioritize and install patches, make changes, enable multi-factor authentication tools, educate your analysts, and enhance your security operations. We map everything to our MITRE attack technique so that it's easy to understand and digest where you have a breakdown or an assessment in the chain. The cyber threat intelligence team acts as an extension of our customer security team. And we really work to provide the experience and capacity for internal teams to really supplement and enrich their security environment. Internally, we also serve an additional function. Our responsibility to our org is to provide all internal teams, including SOC analysts, the incident response team, detection engineering, and all non-MDR business units with our knowledge of the current threats, including campaigns, TTPs, advanced persistent threat group activity, as well as malware analysis and detailed threat landscape insights. What's really key here is that our team's expertise and curated threat intelligence production enhances the MDR service and determines the agenda for additional detection capabilities, especially when threats are too new or too specific, or even not yet properly detected by the endpoint or SIM tools. Our ability to find potential threats, both in the clear and dark web, enables the detection engineering team to develop new detections that increase the breadth and depth of coverage for each tool, protecting our customers' networks. Next slide, Chris. This is just a quick note. If you guys want to get in touch with us, if you have any questions about your specific environment, feel free to reach out to your sales manager, your account manager on the sales side, or your customer success manager if you're internal to Critical Start. With that brief description of DE, I will hand off to Matthew.
And we appreciate that, Callie. Thank you so much. And as you mentioned earlier, you know, the things that you guys are doing on your team helps drive what Matthew and his team are doing. So what I'd like to do now is advance just to the next slide. And again, I'll officially reintroduce Matthew Harris.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, and good night. What I'm going to do is walk you through how we as the threat detection engineering team provide value to your existing MDR investments. We do that through a number of different mechanisms. And in this next couple of slides, I'll hope to uncover and really show you guys what it is we do and how we do it. Next slide, please. And so pivoting off of what Callie has been talking about with CTI, the threat detection engineering team, our purpose is to take that threat intelligence and turn it into action. And so we spend a lot of time developing and researching ways to detect threats and then mapping those threats to the MITRE attack matrix, and then making sure that we're covering any gaps in coverage provided by the vendors. In addition to that, we're building and updating and maintaining existing detections to make sure that we're always up to date. We're looking at ways to chain detections together into attack patterns to better help people contextualize what's going on. In addition, we're sharing our research, we're sharing our findings, our detections, and working with our internal and external stakeholders to make sure that they understand what it is that we're doing to help them empower them to action those detections. Next slide, please. And so what we talk about is the detection lifecycle, and this is the high-level overview for how the team operates. The first step is we're identifying gaps. We're looking for those areas where we can improve or augment existing detections by the vendors. We go through the detection process. We have a detection content lifecycle and a pipeline that we follow internally to make sure that we're producing the right outcomes in a way that is as rapid and as effective as possible. That's the development phases. Then we're going to go in and we're actually going to test those outcomes. We're going to make sure, can they be appropriately integrated in a ZTAP? Can they be actioned by the SOC? Is there any additional data that they need in order to ensure that they're being escalated in a way that allows the customers to respond to those appropriately? Then we run them through our deployments. And after that, we continue to manage those alerts. And so we're actioning modification requests. We're looking at ways that we can improve those detections, improve the efficacy of those detections to make sure that we're improving the number of true positives that we see as a result of the detections that we create. Next slide, please. And so I talk about the pyramid of pain. And so there's different tiers based on the level that you go. And for anything on the bottom tiers, network host artifacts, domain names, IP addresses, hash values, those are all things that relate to the infrastructure that a threat actor might be using. It also allows them to pivot and move very rapidly. And so what happens is, as a detection team, if you're focusing on those bottom tiers, you're constantly chasing new and emerging and changing activities, indicators, artifacts, things that don't provide a lot of value for disrupting adversary operations. And so what we do is we focus on those top two tiers. We're looking at the attacker tools, your things like Emotet, Cobalt Strike, various ransomware variants, Mimikatz, things like that. And what types of activities are consistent with the usage of those tools. And then we want to take it up a level, and we want to start chaining different types of activities and different types of patterns that we see actors or campaigns or groups utilize to achieve their actions on objectives. And so that may be a combination of initial access, followed by persistence, followed by lateral movement, followed by data exfiltration. And by chaining those different patterns together to fully contextualize an event, it allows us to fully disrupt what an attacker or an adversary may be trying to do. Next slide, please. And so once again, those top two tiers, threat detection engineering focuses on disruption of adversary activity, leveraging detections that focus on attacker tools, as well as those TTPs. We'll use tools like MITRE ATT&CK, kill chain analyses, data that we get from the threat intelligence team to help us hyper focus on those areas to have as much positive impact on our detections as possible. Next slide, please. And so there's two primary approaches to developing content that we follow in the team. We use detections that are driven by intelligence or driven by visibility. And so when we talk about driven by intelligence, that's based on the research and the up to the minute information that we're getting from Callie and the threat intelligence team. When they find something that's going on, you look back to things like Kaseya, SolarWinds, Hafnium, some real high profile incidents, high profile campaigns that were leveraged across multiple industry verticals. CTI will notify our team that we've got an event in progress and need to make sure that we're covering those events appropriately. From there, the threat detection engineering team will go and look at our coverage, review what we have in Threat Navigator, review what the vendors can provide, and we're going to look to make sure where those gaps exist. From there, We go through our content development pipeline to create those detections, and then we're pushing that back out so we can communicate knowledge to our customers. Here's what's happening, and here's what we have to protect you from it. In addition, our team is proactively validating the level of visibility that we have. We're looking at things again, kill chain analysis, MITRE ATT&CK, trying to shift as far left in that as possible to catch adversaries early in the act. We identify those visibility gaps. In the event that the team has some knowledge gaps, we want to know what the latest and greatest is. We want to know how threat actors are actually using those particular types of TTPs in order to accomplish their mission. We contact the CTI team to address those knowledge gaps. So similar to the way that a customer would submit an RFI, we're doing the exact same thing. Once we fill those knowledge gaps, we get a better understanding on the context of what's going on and how we can best create those detections. We go and we do it. We run through our content development pipeline, get everything created, make sure it's tested, make sure it's validated, make sure it's playbooked, that the SOC has all the tools and context they need to get those escalated through ZTAP, and then we deploy. Next slide, please. All right, well, I appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully we answered any questions about how we approach threat detection engineering. I'm gonna hand it over for the demonstration of Threat Navigator.
Matthew, I really do appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. And without further ado, we will go ahead and tap the shoulder of Jim to take us through that Navigator. Jim, are you on?
Yeah, I certainly am. Hey, good afternoon. So, hey, Chris, I think you got to pass over presenter to me so that I can share my screen.
Perfect. All right, I'll stop sharing mine right now and pass it over to you.
Thank you. Hey, there we go. Excellent. Give me one moment and I can get my screen shared. Just want to do a tech check. Can everyone see Threat Navigator up on the screen, or ZTAP? All right, perfect.
Good to go, Jim. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you everyone for your time this afternoon. My name is Jim Rohde. I run our pre-sales engineering team here at Critical Start. And you all just heard about all the great things that our cyber research unit is doing from Matt and Callie. And as a customer, we want to make sure that you're empowered to be able to see everything. And of course, ZTAP is that window to your world on everything that we're doing. And so the first thing that I want to make sure to point out is, where can you find Threat Navigator, which is our new capabilities within ZTAP? So what I'm working out of right now is our own demo environment, but the experience is going to be exactly the same when you first log in to ZTAP. Then on the navigation pane, about towards the bottom of the screen, there's a button that says Products. Upon clicking the button that says Products, you're going to see the 2 or 3, depending upon what you have, or 1, products that we are managing and monitoring, leveraging Critical Start MDR. This is where we want you to click into, so then you can get into Threat Navigator. For this example, I'm going to click into Azure Sentinel. And now we're going to start to see a couple of different things. So first, I want to jump into this box that says MITRE View. And then this is really kind of the heart and soul of Threat Navigator. And this is going to give you direct access to understand what our CRU, our Cyber Research Unit, has been up to, and really how we're able to convey these concepts of the detections that we've been adding into your different security products is leveraging the MITRE ATT&CK framework. This is what we're looking at right now. This is basically a gigantic matrix. I'm going to kind of scroll around a little bit. And also, for those of you who are not familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, this matrix that we're looking at, the easiest way to think about it is it's a common language that security professionals are using to talk about different stages within an attack. And so the way that we have this laid out here is on the left-hand side, this is going to be the earlier stages of an attack. First, starting with reconnaissance on the left-hand side. I'm going to scroll all the way to the right. And as you can see, the type of attacks, as well as sophistication and stages start to move up, where we go all the way to the far right, where we have detections that are written for exfiltration attempts, as well as overall impact. So that's how we are arranging how our detections are set up. Now, from here, this is going to give you an idea of two things. Number one, what sort of coverage that you have with your existing tools. And in this case, what's covered by Azure Sentinel is going to be color coded as turquoise. So with the boxes that you see double colors, that means one, there's an out of the box or several out of the box detections from that tool. And then number two, as what Matt just talked about and Callie talked about, there's enhancements to some of those detections that the tool has made, in addition to our own native detections that we've said, hey, there's some gaps with coverage with this tool. We want to make sure that we're adding this. And so that's what you can see by all the different colors. And then of course, the other thing that I want to make sure to highlight is the light blue. These are going to be those detections that are covered exclusively by Critical Start. Now, one of the questions I normally get asked is, why is there so much gray within this matrix? And the answer is, what the different attack types is going to vary based upon the tool that you have. So a great case in point is if you have an endpoint tool, there may be some things that your SIM tool that a SIM tool has capability of detecting. There may be other tools that are completely out of scope for what we're doing that are included in the MITRE attack matrix. But the reason why we're showing this all together is we want to make sure that we're highlighting the matrix. Again, it's that common sheet of music or that single language that we're helping show different stages within an attack. The other thing that we're looking at within here as well is the time frame. So this is what we've seen, and it's against number of events that you'll see here against the number of IOCs or detections. As I mentioned, you have the ability to click into any one of these to then view additional details about the detections that we've created. I'm going to go ahead and jump into one of these examples. Now, what you'll see is we pivoted from the MITRE view into IOCs. This is where you have the ability to view the individual IOCs or detections that are either coming from the tool or what we've created for you. This screen is going to show you two things. One, you have the ability to look up what intel have we published recently, as well as what we've made changes to, helping answer that, what have you done for me lately, besides all the great things that we're doing with resolution of alerts and the investigations that we're doing with your tools. The other thing that the IOCs menu is enabling you to do is, again, in that spirit of unfettered transparency, you have the ability to look at everything that we've been able to build out in terms of those detections. So we're looking at an example of one right here. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time digging into this, but if you have that skill set, and in this case, this is coming from a particular query within Azure Sentinel, I will be the first to admit I cannot read this. However, a number of folks that are on the line have the ability to do so. We want to make sure that we are arming you with, basically our detection and the research around that, because then that will enable more sophisticated security teams to then take additional next steps around, follow-up hunting and things like that. So now that I've shown you guys the mechanism that we have in place, that's the window to the world of our CRU, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton back to Chris. And I will stop sharing my screen as well.
And I really appreciate that, Jim. Thank you very much, sir. It looks like we actually have some time left on today's call to take a few of the questions that have come in. Callie, I have one for you. It has come from Daniel. During your presentation on the things the CTI group are going, he asked, are we able to tap into the type of information that you're providing via ZTAP? Will this information be shown within a ZTAP alert when forwarded to an organization, or how will this work?
That's a great question. Thanks for that, Danielle. So that's kind of a threefold answer. The first answer to that is sort of what Jim just got done showing you, right? Threat Navigator is going to answer probably 85 to 90% of the questions you have in that one-to-one relationship between an alert and the MITRE map, right? And the MITRE map is going to break down exactly the steps and the processes that are mapped to MITRE that are associated with that alert right there in ZTAP for you. And so that's going to be your first go-to, right? Threat Navigator. Additionally, the RFIs that you can submit via your customer success representative are a really great option for additional information, something that may not be associated with a particular alert, or just a question that you have, a headline that you see, hey, we're really interested in, you know, this is our vertical. We have some concerns about this attack group that we are seeing or in the news, or something to do with a malware campaign. We have a malware sample that we'd like to submit for you to analyze. And RFI is a really good mechanism for us to answer any particular questions. And then finally, our roadmap does include more access for premium CTI customers next year for additional custom intelligence. So in the same way that you can pivot from a ZTAP alert via the tap to any console that you use, whether that be Palo Alto, Microsoft, Azure Sentinel, Splunk, anything like that, you can pivot directly into the console. For our premium customers, we will be able to pivot directly from ZTAP into a threat intelligence platform. And I think on slide, what was that, maybe 11 or so? Yeah, slide 11. If you guys get a copy of the presentation deck, you can see all of our sources. And so that's our threat quotient is our tip. And that's where you'll be able to see all of that. Does that answer the question?
I believe it did for me. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And also, we did have another question come in from Daniel. It said, hey, you know what? I followed along on the presentation that Jim did. I was not able to actually see any of the tiles populated. So for anybody that's running into any issues like that, definitely reach out to either a support channel, or if you have a relationship with your customer success manager, you can reach out to them as well. We'll make sure that we get down to the bottom of that for you. Because as it is today, and anybody on this call can correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be live for all of us.
Yep, I think, Chris, one important thing to clarify is the tool support that we have today with Threat Navigator. So the first thing I want to call out is, with all of the tools that we support, we are injecting our own detection content into it. And this is something that we've been doing for quite some time. Specific to the Threat Navigator functionality that I ran everyone through, we have tool support for the following. Number one, that is Windows Defender or Microsoft Defender for endpoint. And then we also have support for Azure Sentinel, Devo, and Splunk today. The other tools, for instance, Cortex XDR, Carbon Black Response, some of the other endpoint tools, that's on our roadmap, and we should see that be released within the next month or two.
That's a great point, Jim. I appreciate that. Well, guys, we see a few more questions that are rolling in, but I know we are running short of time. So what we'll do with these is take, again, all of the questions that have come in, make sure that we dole those out and have those answered for you. If not shortly after today's call, definitely by the week of the 13th. So once again, just wanted to say thanks to everybody who has joined for the call today. And thank you, Callie. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Jim, for taking your time out of y'all's busy days and presenting to all of us. So also, if I'm not mistaken, all of us who have registered for today's call will get an email that will have a link to the recording. So with that being done, guys, hey, again, appreciate everyone. For those that have jumped in from the morning to the afternoon, great evening. Y'all have a wonderful, safe day, all right? Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.